and today we are back with another Boom interview. So if you want to hear about accessible home design and all that, stick around. If you are new here, subscribe button down here, like this video, comment with any questions or really anything you want. If you can't understand what I'm saying, please turn on your subtitles using the key button at the bottom of this video, and I can't wait to talk to Megan. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me, Anna. My name's Megan Blau. I am the owner of Blue Copper Design, and I'm an interior designer who focuses on combining adaptive design and just beautiful interior designs and blending those together for my clients to have them love their home and really feel empowered in the space that they live in.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about this because I actually, so my parents moved about 2 years ago, I want to say, to a house with a mother-in-law seat attached to it so that I could have my independent living area, but I could also have access to all the daily help I need. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say because maybe I'll learn something new for adapting my environment even more.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. I feel like houses with that mother-in-law suite attachment are so versatile. So they're not only for mother-in-laws, they could be for,
Right.
siblings or, their children or anyone really. So that's cool. That's really cool that your parents had that like forethought and
Yeah.
including you in their move and really still giving you your own space, but making sure that like you're still taken care of and things like that. That's nice that you have like your own personal space.
I love it so much. So my first question is, I know you're a disabled interior designer for accessible and non-accessible homes. Do you want to explain your journey with that?
Sure, yeah. So I do work with disabled clients with adaptive homes, but I also work with able-bodied clients and non-adaptive homes. And the reason I really got into interior design is because I am a wheelchair user. So I have a spinal cord injury. Um, and so I've been in a wheelchair for 12 years. And when I bought my first home, first I had like a really hard time searching for an accessible apartment, like we all do.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's hard. There's not a lot of options out there. And so that kind of pushed me into seeing if I could be able to purchase a home. And I ended up qualifying. So I went that route and I just knew that I was going to have to do renovation on the home. And it kind of clicked where I was like, oh, I'm always going to have to do renovations on my home. And so are pretty much a lot of people with disabilities, especially physical disabilities. So, um, I really fell in love with the process. Like I've always been interested in interior design my whole life. And before I was in a chair, but I never thought about it really. And then when I combined the two of like disability and then design and like fusing those two loves, I guess, this is kind of where my business idea came up with because I was like, too many times people with disabilities have to advocate for themselves in like every area of life, and I found myself during my renovation process having to advocate for myself to contractors and vendors and things like that, and it's exhausting. And some people, sometimes we don't know what we're doing with homes. And I felt like I knew what I was doing and it was still exhausting. So I came up with the idea to offer like a traditional interior design service to people with disabilities to be their advocate, get them a really great result that they may not be able to achieve on their own, and really bring like that fusion of accessibility and beauty and combining. So that's pretty much where I started.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like there's not many places that offer a home in 13. I think I never heard of one in my entire 20-year life. And
Mhm.
even the homes that say they're accessible or not really that accessible. Because we've been talking about, even in my mother-in-law, we want to install automatic doors so that I
Mhm.
can get out, and say my house was burning down, you know. But, but no one ever thinks about all that stuff unless you're living in it.
Right. Yeah, it's such a good point. Like, it's hard to find accessible housing for sure. Like, if in apartments, I feel like there are all of the units are usually taken up, and there's like long waiting lists and things to get into the accessible apartments. So that's like one side of it. The other side of it is if you're going to purchase a home, there's no rules or anything saying that any home has to be accessible. And I understand why that is, why that happens, but it's so overlooked. And then usually people with disabilities are left like scrambling to kind of make their house work for them and make do, either if they had a diagnosis or an injury or if they move. Like,
Right,
it's always chaotic to make your house accessible because it's not like you can live in an inaccessible place for an
right.
extended period of time.
Right. And then also, like, if you are disabled, and I'm not saying that these places are bad, but if you don't have a mental disability, I feel like a community disability community living center is not only the best option for somebody with a physical disability, because you don't want, at least taking, in my opinion, I don't want to move into a nursing home type setting. I would rather have my home customized for me.
Totally.
Yeah,
And like, a lot of people don't need to live in a nursing home. A lot of people with disabilities are independent enough or have caregivers that come to their home. Like, that's not necessary to live in a nursing home. And but some people do, just for the accessibility, which
right,
is like totally, like, we don't need to do that. So
right,
focusing pretty much my whole efforts and passion have been focused on creating like customized adaptive homes for my clients.
right,
So, we all are familiar with the ADA and all of their guidelines that they impose on public spaces, which are pretty universally great. Like, they work for a lot of people, but those guidelines don't necessarily need to be put into every disabled person's home. So, like, Anna, like what you were mentioning with your automatic doors, like that is something that would really help you in
right,
your home, but that doesn't, like, I personally don't need automatic doors. So
right,
for us, like, adaptive design doesn't really have as many rules as ADA design. We just listen to what our clients need specifically to make their life better. And that's what we implement. That's what we spend the money and the renovations and focus on. So yeah, I feel like that's kind of the difference too between us and other like contractors who say that they do like accessible design. They're usually just applying ADA guidelines, but not
right,
really thinking outside of the box from that and getting into like more of a creative realm of like, well, why would we do that for your house, Anna, if you don't need it, and vice
right.
versa. Like, we need to focus on what Anna needs and go from there.
Right. I definitely agree. But I know you're in the even interior designer who are uh, who are accessible and non accessible home. How does your higher view your professional opinion change because of your disability?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
Just the second
Um.
part.
With what point? What point did you?
Oh, just the last part of the question.
How does your higher view your professional opinion change your disability?
Oh, I feel like I have a whole different perspective, like my professional opinion with design and combining like disability. Like I feel really honored to like bring this into the interior design community because I have a lot of close friends who are interior designers who have never really thought about accessibility. So like just sharing my perspective and my life story with people has even like shifted the way that they've designed and they're starting to think about things that they normally wouldn't think of. So I find that to be really like life changing, because if
Yeah,
we're gonna tackle like accessibility, I can't do it alone.
right.
Like we need to have like a community of people like working towards a bigger goal. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely agree. Even in my community, because I when I was researching my brand in my senior year, I was, looking at a variety of different YouTube channels, and I noticed that like a lot of mother and daughter have Instagram account or YouTube account focusing on childhood cerebral palsy, and
Mhm.
not a lot of adults have that either. And like I saw no adult with cerebral palsy telling their daily life. And I was like, I need to be the one that does that. Cerebral palsy doesn't end when you're 7 or 8 years old. It's a long-term disability.
Right. And it's like from what I know, because I have friends who have cerebral palsy too, like it's everyone kind of presents differently. And I think
Right,
like expressing that and having just other people who aren't familiar know, like most of the time people just need to be like exposed to different perspectives or the disability perspective and then they start being like, oh, like that's what makes them think and understand and feel and like want to provide change, and
right,
provide things to be better. Like whenever I share like a personal story about how like living in a wheelchair is different than being an able-bodied person, I get a lot of people who are like, "Oh my gosh, like I just never thought of it," but it like sticks with them because, they have a personal connection. So I always find that it's best like for us as disabled people to like make personal connections with our community, and that's what's going to make the biggest change,
right.
like you've experienced, Anna, and I'm sure like a bunch of your viewers have as well.
Yeah, my husband, when dividing a accessible home, in your opinion, what are some of the most important factors dividers and clients need to think about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my goal is to always, if we're, so there's two different parts of interior design, right? So there's renovations where we're doing a lot of construction, and then there's the furnishing part. So my goal, as far as like, we'll talk about renovations first, I always want to get a roll-in shower into a house, like whether it's an able-bodied client or a disabled client. I'm like, if we're gonna do a bathroom renovation, I'm gonna get a curbless shower because there's so many like walk-in showers, but they have that little curb and it can make it
Right,
really hard for people to transfer. And like if you don't live with a disability or in a wheelchair, like you don't see that. You're like, oh, it's close to the ground, and you're like, no, it doesn't work. So that's like number one. Like I want to have a good shower, a good roll-in shower, and a spacious bathroom so that someone in a wheelchair or like with a walker or a cane like has room to move. So that's a big element that I like to incorporate. I also like to get really creative with my roll under sinks so that they don't look so like generic or hospital like. I like to use different materials and have it look more of like an art piece, as opposed to just like the traditional sinks on the wall that we see in all of like the public bathrooms and things.
right,
So yeah. Another big part of the renovation side is obviously kitchens. So bathrooms and kitchens are like the biggest ticket items. So for kitchens, I like to use drawer storage mostly, unless my clients are opposed. I just find it a lot easier to like access all of the things inside instead of the doors with with
Oh,
the
yeah.
cabinet doors. Like it's always nice just to pull something out and roll up to the side or to the front or however is easiest for you to get in there. Um, Again, roll under sinks are nice for kitchens. I personally don't have a roll under sink. I had one in my first home and I like never really used it. I still pulled up to the side. So I was like, I'm not going to do it this time and see how I feel. Now I wish I had one. Again, I'm like flip flopping all the time. um, but like in my home with me, I experiment all the time. But it's really just about like what my clients need. That's where it's like I have general rules, but like the very specifics is what like makes the house a home for my clients. And that gets into just like all of the nitty gritty details, like all of it just gets like very, very fine tuned. So
Right.
yeah.
Um, okay, being an interior designer, do you think Heidi has made headway when it comes to a habitable home design or universal design in public? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think I kind of just started my business is how it feels, even though it's been like 2.5 years.
Mm,
I feel like I have a lot of headway to make, and I do feel like I'm kind of gathering people as I'm going along this journey to help me. And I feel like there's a lot of work to be done. Like I feel like the ADA was a great baseline, but we like in our generation of disabled people, like I think it's our job to add on to that and get more into like the universal design realm as opposed to the ADA, because I think universal design is really like the most accessible way to design like public buildings, even homes too, but
right,
definitely public buildings. So I'm on a mission to just spread that word and like keep going with that. But also like I have such a passion for traveling, and I one day foresee like making headway in hotels and Airbnbs and
yeah,
getting those to be more accessible, because we all know like having an accessible hotel room doesn't always mean that it's accessible. They don't have enough. Like if they might only have like a handful of rooms, it's just not enough. So I have a lot of ideas with making travel as like in lodging and hotel accommodations and hospitality like a lot more accessible as well, but always keeping it really beautiful too.
definitely. I mean, with travel, because
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw my video about traveling, but I was talking about how I don't travel that often to new places because it's hard. Because everywhere I go, something is wrong with accessibility.
Mhm.
I feel like every hotel has at least have their normal room somewhat accessible for those with a disability as well.
Yeah, and it's like the hotel will be like, yeah, this is an accessible room, but they really just put like a grab bar in a
Right.
normal bathroom, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's not accessible. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't help me.
Yeah.
I can't even get in there to grab it. And even
Right.
if they do have like roll-in showers or big bathrooms and all of the bells and whistles, my biggest complaint is the beds are always so
Me
high
too.
still.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't transfer onto that. Like, I can travel by myself if the beds weren't so high. That's crazy. Like, that's a crazy thing to overlook. So,
Yep.
I have a lot of big ideas with that because I think that traveling is such a great experience. I think everyone who wants to travel should be able to. And I also understand that like a lot of people with disabilities don't end up traveling as much as they want to because of the accessibility issues, and it just doesn't have to be that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Right.
a mission of mine.
Yeah, definitely. And my best question, what are some ways we can make society and divine more accessible for those with disabilities?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to my friend about this yesterday. We went to lunch and I personally think that, there's obviously big things to do and big things to tackle, but for us with disabilities, I think it's good to start small, like start in your community and what affects you. So, different parts of the country are more accessible than others. Some parts are good at accessibility and some parts aren't. And I think, like, even in Arizona, I live in Arizona, but there it's pretty accessible, but I'll run into like a couple buildings or bathrooms that like I can't really get into. And I'm starting to make a list of like those places and those issues. Like there's a restaurant that I go to and the bathroom door is just installed the wrong way. So it swings in instead of out. And like when you're going to the
I
stall, you
hate
can't
that.
close the
Yeah.
door because
Yeah.
you hit it. And that's a really simple fix. So like it's my mission now to start writing those down and then just contacting those places directly and being like very like starting out nice and just being like, hey, like this is a problem that I see with your building, like this is how it affects me. Could you fix this? Because and if they start giving you hesitation, then you can start bringing up like your rights and like, hey, you're actually in violation of the ADA law, like did you know that? And you can
Right.
start reporting. But I think all too often you focus on like the big picture, and it's good to know what that is, but it's hard to tackle that. Do you know what I mean? It gets overwhelming when
Right.
you start thinking like nothing is accessible. You're like, well, what am I going to do? So I encourage people with disabilities to just start small, start in your community, and just bring it up to people. Bring up like your accessibility issues to that direct person who owns the building or owns the store, because I bet you 9 times out of 10, people want to be nice. Like people want to accommodate people with disabilities. They just don't think about it. They just don't know that things
Right.
are not working out. So,
And then also by doing that, they don't want to move customers either.
right.
But they just don't know. And I never thought about making a myth. I could do that. That would be really good. Um, I'm gonna
Yeah.
start doing that. That was a good tip.
Yeah, I just keep it in my phone. I'm like, okay, whenever I have time, like I'm gonna send an email or I'm gonna talk to the person, and just be like, hey, like, you're in this isn't working out for me. This is how it affected me. And then if they like aren't accommodating, then you could be like, you're actually infringing on my rights. But I
Right.
like to start nice.
Yeah,
I do
I
feel
don't
like
like to be
kindness
mean.
goes a long way.
Yeah, I don't like to be mean.
No, and we don't have to be mean. I don't
Yeah,
think we have to be mean. We can be like firm, like,
yeah,
but
right.
not mean.
Yeah, so thank you, Megan, for being on my channel. I had so much fun learning about the topic, and I hope you guys did too. So if you like this video, make sure you know how Megan is command down below. I'll put it right on top of the description box so you won't miss it. So make sure you know how her subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.